introducing you to this newer show that we put together called The Enlightened Passenger. The idea behind the show is simply asking guests what they would tell a stranger on a plane if they were sitting next to them and the stranger asked them for advice.
The scenery is passing very fast, but the seer is constant. The one who's seeing is the same.
Let me appreciate you for asking a question that I haven't been asked after 2,500 or so interviews over the years.
You have to drop the ego, which is everyone's greatest obstacle.
In 2008, Grant and I had been married for 4 years. I was pregnant with my first child. The economy was collapsing, and we were on the verge of losing everything financially.
So it's so great to be back here with Dr. Joe. And Joe, where I wanted to start, and I know this is a really deep place to start for a first interview question, but where it's a shorter interview series, I like to jump in really deep. And so it's around this idea of legacy. You know, so we hear people talk about legacy all the time. I interview a lot of people who say that legacy is, you don't get to choose it. It just happens to you after or behind your back, what people say about you. And I have other people that say you need to direct it if you want your legacy to be a certain thing. I'd love to see where you sit around this idea of legacy.
I don't care about legacy. I don't care at all about legacy. I care about now. I was talking to a potential consultant a few years ago, and he was really looking at the idea that legacy was important to me, which meant he didn't do his research. And I said, I don't care about legacy. I don't want to help people now. There are people hurting now, people struggling now. We're in a pandemic. We've got all the kind of things going on in the world, from war to economic recession to the unpredictability of what's going to happen next by life itself, that I really want to do what makes a difference now. Let the chips fall where they may after I'm put in the ground. So legacy is of no concern.
Wow, I love it. And I love the succinctness with what you shared that, because obviously it is something that you've thought about before. Like you said, you had this consultant talk to you about it. So obviously you knew that he hadn't done the research to know that, again, you're more focused on what's happening today. And I mean, there's a great argument to be made that, you know, really once we're gone, at least of our earthly body, what can we do about it anyway? You know, what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, the whole world may end anyway, so I don't care about legacy. It's all going to burn to the ground at some point. So let it go.
So let me ask you this, and I don't think I asked you this before. I mean, I shouldn't say I know, but I can make an assumption you're a book reader based on all the books I see behind you.
Sorry, I have to laugh out loud at that one. Come on, of course I'm a book reader.
And I see an older copy of Think and Grow Rich right above the guitar, so I think that's pretty cool.
Signed copy. Yeah.
Wow. I'm still trying to find that. I have a 1937 copy. It's only the fourth printing. It's in the first 100,000 books, but no signature. I'm still trying to find that copy.
They're out there.
Yeah, I know, and I know. Well, I think the other thing I noticed is I think the signed copy, some of them now run like 25,000, 30,000. It gets
yes,
pretty pricey.
His legacy has taken hold.
Yes, 100%. So let me ask you then, on the book side, are there, and I know it's probably an unfair question being such a big reader, but are there 2 or 3 books that you tell everybody they must read? Like, are there some must-read books that stand out to you that you've told people over the years, you got to grab this book?
Yeah, as much as I read, unfortunately, there's only a handful of them that stand out. But those books stand out and bark and get attention and are going to live forever. Books like Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It came out in 1960. I reread it again recently, and I thought I might as well burn all of my own books, because his book was so good. He said it all in that book, Psycho-Cybernetics. But there's new books that are coming out all the time, and some of them really take hold. There's a new book called Whole Brain Living by Jill Bolt Taylor. She's the woman who had a stroke and then wrote a book after she recovered from the stroke and learned how to retrain her brain. I think it was called My Stroke of Luck. And now her book is called Whole Brain Living. And she's talking about the 4 aspects or personalities of our brain. We're not just left and right brain. We actually have subpersonalities, and she defines them. So I tell people to read that book. There was a book that came out a few years ago called The Power of Impossible Thinking. And my God, I so love that book because it was trying to get you to look at the way you think. Most of us are just thinking and we're caught up in our thinking. We don't know that we're not our brain, we're not our thoughts. We can be separate from it. And when you detach a little bit, now you have some objectivity and you can actually direct where you want to go with your thinking. So the power of impossible thinking. When I was growing up, I read The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. This would have been in the 1960s. This book came out in 1950. It blew my hair off. I used to have hair. It just burned it off of my head because it really said that if you can believe it with conviction, you can actually create it. And of course, later Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich has that famous line, if you can conceive it and you can believe it, then you can achieve it. I mean, there's some terrific books out there. And we can do a whole show for 2 hours just on those books alone.
Well, what is it?
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Yeah, Psycho-Cybernetics. I've heard that book's name probably 10 times in the last 12 months. And I hadn't been hearing about it before. So I think the universe is saying to me, Corey, why haven't you ordered me yet? I need to get this book because it keeps coming up. And like I said, it never did before. And now it's nonstop. And it's kind of intriguing that it's a book from so long ago that now is. So again, I think it's the universe that's like literally hitting me now saying, what are you doing? How many times do you need to hear this? So thank you. I think this is the last reminder. I'm ordering it as soon as we get off this interview. The main question I want to ask you, which is about being on a plane, you're sitting next to a stranger, they lean over and say, hey, I'm just starting my journey. What advice do you have for me?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I have been on enough planes in my career to have conversations like that from time to time. And it's always juicy because you never know who you're talking to and you never know if they're really listening. And then you never know if they're going to act on what you just said. So I would say at least 2 things. The very first one is intention rules the earth. What do you want? You must declare what you want to have, do, or be to be able to go in the direction of having it. Forget how and forget all of the questions and the doubtings and everything else. But this is how the mind works and this is how the universe works. We need to have a target. And so stating your intention is going to be the first all-powerful thing. And I would tell people, state intentions for getting on the plane. What do you want to have happen on the plane? State intentions for your next phone call. State intentions for your next meeting. State intentions all the time to flex your muscle on how to state intentions. Then the second thing I would say, and this is probably really the secret of the universe, this is really the secret of getting all the results. I was on one TV show or radio show or something, and they said, what is the one thing that you have to do to achieve success? And I was irritated because I thought there is no one thing. You got to do everything. And then I thought, yeah, there is one thing. And this one thing beats talent. This one thing beats luck. This one thing beats relationships. This one thing beats anything you can name. And the one thing is persistence. Get up every freaking day and do what you know you need to do to move in the direction of your intentions. One step at a time, over time, you will achieve it because that's the only thing possible. Persistence. When I look back, all those struggle times and everything, I kept getting up. I kept writing. I kept persisting. I kept publishing. I kept speaking. I kept doing whatever was next for me to do. And even today, I'm still doing it. Intention and persistence, and you can fasten your seatbelt and arrive where you want to go.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I could carry this conversation forever because we both think a lot alike, I feel. Both musicians. I don't have as many albums as you. I have 4, not 15, awesome. But and I have maybe I'm now involved in co-author and authoring maybe 25 books. So I'm nowhere near 80. I'm working towards becoming Dr. Joe. So, but my last question, which is the unofficial question. So I was saying that to say that I could carry this conversation forever, but at the same time, I don't want to let people run where it's a shorter conversation without knowing how they can reach out to you, get in touch with you, work with you, find out more about what you're doing. So my final question is there a hub? Is there a place where you send everybody who wants to know more about all the work you do and what's coming up?
Probably the easiest hub would be mrfire.com, MRFIRE.com. Mr. Fire has been my nickname for years, and way back when we didn't know what we were doing, putting up websites, I put up one called mrfire.com. Still there, and it's a portal to everything. And of course, books are on Amazon, music's on Spotify, wherever you find music. And no, I'm not hiding. You can find me online.
Amazing. Well, like I say, this has been an absolute pleasure. So with your permission,
Yeah.
I'll call it a to be continue because you always over deliver. So thank you so much, my friend.
Oh, I love it. I'm sorry that we have to end. I got more to say.
Well, like I say, we'll
Until
call it a
next
to be
time.
continued then. We'll make it next time.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Hey everybody, Corey Poirier here. Thanks again for checking out The Enlightened Passenger. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Joe Vitale. And I also hope you took away some of the amazing things that I did from this interview as well. One of my biggest takeaways from what Joe shared was around this idea that he doesn't think about legacy at all. You know, usually I get answers around how people think about legacy and what it means to them. And so I love it when we get a different answer than I'm expecting. And so the idea that he doesn't think about legacy at all, very powerful to me, especially when he said the reason is that there's so many people that needs his focus today and now versus, you know, later on in life or when he's gone. And so I think this is very powerful. It's not to say that you should change your view or thoughts around legacy depending on how you view legacy, but just to say I think it's a very powerful approach to it is the idea of why not create what somebody might else, you know, why not create, I'll start that over again, why not create what somebody might otherwise call your legacy today and make it your current legacy even without using the words. And so what I would ask you is if you were doing something today, like your legacy depended on it, what would you do today? Versus, you know, what would you do over the grandiose long-term thing? What would you do today to, I guess, instill your current legacy or to fulfill that current legacy? What would you do today? What's the one thing you would be doing if you knew that today was the day your legacy was created? Maybe write that down on a piece of paper or type it out on your computer or type it on your phone. And then my secondary part to that I would ask you is, why aren't you doing it now? And the other side is if you're willing to do it now, why not write down a way that you could do it now? So let me know how that works out for you. Tell us in the comments. And otherwise than that, you have an amazing rest of your day. And thank you for joining us on The Enlightened Passenger. Hey everybody, Corey Poirier here. Thanks so much for checking out the latest episode of The Enlightened Passenger. And I want to thank you by giving you a gift. So if you can head over to peopleonplanes.com, again, peopleonplanes.com today, you can actually grab a copy of my top 10 insights guide. Now, when I say my top 10 insights guide, these are the top 10 insights that I've gathered during interviews with some of the world's top thought leaders. So in that insights guide, you're going to find insight by the legendary Les Brown, by Lisa Nichols, by the late Bob Proctor. I believe Jack Canfield's in there as well. And these are, again, the insights that it took me thousands of hours and thousands of interviews to gather. And I put them all together in a top 10 insights guide that I want to gift to you. So if you go over to peopleonplanes.com, and you can grab your free copy. If you scroll down, you'll see where it says grab your top 10 insights guide. And of course, on the website, you'll also find other things like the latest episodes of the podcast itself. So thank you so much for joining us on The Enlightened Passenger. I'm Corey Poirier. Until next time.